But let me tell you storytelling, because Steve Denning and I were at the, when he came up with it, I have so many stories to tell about Steve, but he is really the guru on storytelling. So I want to tell a couple stories, but with the insight to address the ultimate objective. What do I recommend, or how do I see a curriculum developing on KM? And part of it, I have to talk about me, which I don't like to, but it's part of the story on how we should look at KM. And I'm so old, I have a unique perspective because I was at the birth of program management, systems management as an academic discipline. I was a participant as a student there at Southern Cal. I was at the birth of information management as a curriculum at Golden Gate University. I taught the first master's course there. When I joined the Marine Corps, I had a responsibility to do command and control acquisition for my last 5 years. And I had to create a common technical architecture for all of our weapon systems, which lately became, many of you might have known it if you worked with the Department of Defense. It was called the Department of Defense Information Infrastructure Common Operating Environment, DICOA. And it brought together all the services and all the agencies together under a common technical architecture. At that time, I tried to convince the J6 Admiral Mackey to do a common information environment, what we would call a knowledge architecture today, but they didn't even know what I was talking about. They were still into pipes and connectors and speeds and all that. And those were the days when you needed to think about that, not anymore. Then I joined SAIC as an executive, and we bought Network Solutions in 1995, 1 January, for $10 million, and sold them for $15 billion later on because they still take your domain name. And I was part of that team to do knowledge management at SAIC, but we didn't know what it was. But everything that I've learned and teach in knowledge management, we practiced without a name at SAIC. And how do I know we were successful? Because we were getting 25%, I'll repeat that, 25% return on our assets, our knowledge, because we're a knowledge-based company. That's all we had. 25% return on our assets. And when I looked at how we did it, I said, wow, these are the best KM practices I have ever seen in my life. We didn't like each other. Don't get me wrong, we hated each other at SAIC. If you know the company, we competed radically, strongly. It was like worse than the services. Then I came to GW 13 years ago. I'm finishing up my 13th year. I don't know if this is a bad number, a good number, or whatever. And my first year, I had the good fortune to run the Cyberspace Policy Institute, and through that mechanism, I met Sir Tim Berners-Lee. Now, I'm sure 95% of you don't know who he is, but he invented, the sole inventor of the World Wide Web, not the Internet. Al Gore invented that. And Tim Berners knew he needed, for the lab in Switzerland, the Center for Nuclear Research, the director there needed somehow to manage these scientists, physicists who do their own thing. But he needed to know something about what they did. So the World Wide Web that you know of today, the single sole inventor is Tim Berners-Lee. And you ought to read his book, Weaving the Web, because I'm going to recommend that to Denise and Annie, who I have to congratulate publicly for what they're doing here. And the governance of the World Wide Web is phenomenal. They have a center at MIT where Tim lives. I've been up there. They have a center in France where I want to go, in Fontainebleau, ooh la la. And they got one in Japan. And the governance of check the web, w3c.org, it's exactly what we've got here. How do we govern? I know governance is a bad word sometimes, but how do we manage chaos to come up with something working that we all use every day? Imagine life without the web. Indispensable. That's why when people say KM is about people, process, and technology, and people are the most important thing, I say, come on, give me a break. Give me your web away from you, and you'll find out how important people are. I mean, I know a lot of you abuse your spouse by going on the web. So don't give me that BS that people are more important than the web. They're all critical. So I just share that because when I was there, I had the fortune in Amsterdam to be sitting down with Tim when he, on a piece of paper, which I still kept to this day, outlined the architecture for the semantic web, which is the Web 2.0, or part of it. So now I get to GW. Why KM? I mean, I had no clue as to what KM was. I was doing it all my life to a degree, certainly at SAIC to in spades. And then I read a book and I met him, Tom Stewart. Maybe you don't know him, but he truly influenced me more than any single and I've been around Tom Davenport and Larry Pruzak and the pioneers. Carl Veig was on my board. But Tom was the one who really made me say, wow. Because he treated knowledge as an asset. And if you ever read his books, The Wealth of Nations or The Intellectual Capital, then you get a sense of why I say we are missing the boat, because we don't treat it as a group. We don't treat it. If we did, we would act differently. And so I knew that I wanted to get into it because I was there at the birth of information management. I taught data management. Why not knowledge management? I got to do something else with my life. But I couldn't find a university to grant a degree. And as I told some of you, no one comes to learn, they come to get a degree. Yeah, you learn in the process, but if you don't get a degree when you leave, you don't sit in my class and listen to a boring speech. So, and I was in a department that was and I hesitate to say interdisciplinary. There are a lot of disciplines, and Annie knows that because she's one of our sterling faculty there. But we don't really know how to stitch it together well. We've got all of these 9 concentrations. There's now one person who can stitch it together into a tapestry. So I knew, as I began to explore, used Isaac Newton as my guide to how you create an academic discipline, because Harvard didn't have any. Kent State didn't have any. No one had any. We had a lot of itinerant professors and charlatans out there practicing whatever they said KM was, but no one really knew what it was, least of all me. However, as I began to explore all of the rich material like Newton and collect apples, as I said, I came up with what I would term the 4 pillars or the DNA of KM. And I knew I had to build my curriculum around those 4 areas, and there's about 40 sub-disciplines interacting there. So this is nothing new. We did this 13 years ago. I validated it. I knew I got the master's program off the road. I got the certificate program, which was degree granting off the road. But my gem, and still remains, is the doctoral program, because without the research, you don't know what to teach. And in this room, you'll find a bunch of people from Phil over there, to Ethial from Saudi Arabia. Phil's an American. I got Milena from Macedonia. I don't know if Ife Naduka is here from Nigeria. But I was collecting, we defined the element, and I decided to go geographically and multidisciplinary and stitch them together. I know I'm running short now, and I'm probably over. But give me 2 more minutes. These are my 2 minutes. So the bottom line is we, since then, have graduated 27 doctors. Now, who are they? I mentioned Dan Holzhaus to some of you. He was the director of knowledge at Xerox. He's part of the graduation team. The people we have, from Kent Greenis, who did BP Amico. If you really read the great cases like Bob Buckman, CEO of Buckman Labs, you read Sir John Brown of BP Amico, these are the CEOs who, they tell you without KM, they would not be where they are today. So I just put that out there because now, in this room here, we tried this with Steve and Carla and others, I don't know, 3-5 years ago. We didn't succeed. But what I see now, and I just came back from Hong Kong, and I've been in Paris at the first induction of the first chair on intellectual capital in Europe, sponsored by IES and others. If you go to W.B. Lee's Research Center at KM in Hong Kong Polytech, it's staggering, staggering. The president, by the way, is my former dean here who helped me found the institute. And my old institute, when I was political engineering, we got a new dean. Is this combination of the School of Business, Graduate School of Education and Human Development, the organizational stuff that people mentioned, and of course mine, the School of Engineering and Applied Science. So, I welcome diversity. We have it here. I was just talking with Carla. What is staggering about this meeting, besides it happening, I think it was Woody Allen said 95% of life is just showing up. We showed up. Thank you, Denise and Annie. But what is staggering is no one is in disagreement here. First time I've ever seen that. We have diversity, not disagreement. I have 21 principles on how to manage in the 21st century. KM has done 2 of them. The codification side, we need to write it down and keep it alive, and the collaboration side. I'm finished. The third one, of course, is convergence. We're bringing together different people. What we lack, and the output of this conference, is coherence. We need a symphony, Denise and Annie. We need a global professional society like the W3C to give us coherence. That's my pitch. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to now move forward with the second question to see if we can identify some core